All right, it's Monday, November 6th. This is an end of the day SPY recap. Today on the daily chart, we end up with an inside bar here. It kind of stayed inside the low of the previous day and inside the high the previous day and closed a little bit green. And clearly it was just a pause day that was pretty much anticipated in some form after this big run up last week. So your exhaustion risk, clearly, it's hard to get that momentum to the upside, day after day after day. And yet the pullback, while there's certainly room to pull back into some of these gaps, this could be a potential pretty strong reversal. So buying is going to tend to come in, unless this was really going to fail and head all the way back down, which you don't really expect at this point. On the weekly chart, I still think we're going to take out that weekly high before this week's over. We do have these two targets up here. That's what we're judging. Then we'll see what develops from there. Is that just going to be lower lows and higher highs and maybe reverse? However, if you do reverse, I just can't see, it's going to be tricky to me to get that green bar eventually taking out these lows again. So even if we reverse and come down maybe for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, it could happen from a standpoint of time. But if it just kind of, it sets up kind of a bull flag, if it ends up kind of reversing, but not really getting much way below the halfway point of that bar. But again, that doesn't mean it can't last for a couple of weeks should that happen. And then maybe we head up, but if it does and we're not really penetrating, the lows of this green bar and you see something kind of pulling back, then you could really expect another strong move to the upside. But, quite frankly, maybe we don't even get that pullback and, we stay green, take that out. If we look here, even though the monthly chart at the moment is inside, if we continue a little higher, we might be getting a 2-up month. And we're very close on the quarterly chart to, possibly getting a 2-down failure where we take out the low of the previous quarter, but then we get through the halfway point of that bar. Should it head higher, then you can almost expect by the end of the year we might get an outside bar back to those highs again. So we're kind of at that point, but, we're also we're right at the halfway point. So it's possible this is just a little bit of a bear market rally and eventually we turn down, but we'll have to wait for that quarterly chart to turn red now, get below the open, which is that purple line. So those are kind of the things we're monitoring for. If you look at just today's price action, again, the main thing in terms of today, knowing your exhaustion risk, you can see the opening bar here, 15-minute bar, got the pre-market ranges between the blue lines, kind of probed up there and then just closed neutral red. So it never broke above that first bar high and continued higher. That's what it was doing all these other days, first bar high, breaking higher, first bar high, breaking higher, pause, but then another move up. This day here, breaking higher, pause, and head up. So today we didn't have that out of the gates at all. If anything, there was a little bit of a downward sell opportunity here, thinking you might kind of take out the pre-market lows. You just missed it on this move, but then the rally kind of came back only to the halfway point. So once you started lower here early, until you get, we're going to really get some kind of green move to test that high, there was no bias to the upside. However, once you had, either the sell here that you held on to the midway point and then it made its second push down, or you wanted to kind of look at this as a failure at the midpoint of the first bar and then try a sell to take out, because at that point you had the intraday low and you had the pre-market lows that hadn't been hit yet and yesterday's little pivot low here. So you kind of had 3 points here that was kind of high probability you were going to take out once it rolled over, here. And at that point, right, it came all the way down. This was a little bit of a trade here, either getting short right out of the gates, bar number 2 and holding on through this and getting the 1 push, 2 pushes down, or just watching it and then maybe trying a second push down. But once it kind of came through here, there wasn't necessarily, you're not expecting momentum to kick into the downside. So it's just not surprising at all after my typical, way I analyze things, 1 push, 2 pushes, 1 push, 2 pushes, pauses somewhere in here, and by the end of the day, it comes all the way back up. And you had to almost expect that, given you just had your 2 pushes. That's your morning trade. That's it. No, you're not really at that point looking for any strong move down, and you don't know it's going to head up, but given the strong uptrend in play, it's certainly not surprising. But so today was just a pause day, and this type of price action, should you have gotten short here, you should really have taken your base hit gains down here, and that's it. And then obviously we came up by the end of the day, so we closed kind of neutral here on the day, a little bit of a pause. We have an inside bar for tomorrow. What that means is you have the potential for a failure, either up or down. So we'll see if it kind of takes out the high and then gets back through the midpoint of that bar. If it does take out the high, I really want to see if we kind of hit that target or not. That'll be, we could get up there, and if we hit that target and then come back to the midpoint, that could be a good failure to start filling in this gap. Should we head lower, which I would actually prefer, I'd love to see it come down, fail to take out its target, then come back through the midpoint of that bar. That would kind of have a pretty good high probability buy trade to take out those targets. So we'll watch that inside bar as you always do for failures. And obviously, if it's not going to be a failure, then an inside bar should get a lot of momentum one way or the other. So, you play that breakout, but you want to see the strong one push up, pause, second push up, or one push down, pause, second push down on any kind of directional day. If you're not getting that, be prepared for a failure. Finally, I guess the expectation here again in the bigger picture is still to take out that weekly high and these two pivot points right here. So we'll see if that happens tomorrow or in some form, after a pullback. And until proven otherwise, that's really where price is heading. There's even a fair value gap a little higher than that. So it's just a matter of how it wants to get there. So stay biased to the upside. Today, if you wanted to, the only upside even potential consideration was after two pushes down, just to say I'm going to jump in here and anticipate, buying coming in, and that's what happened. So just even seeing that shows you that the bigger picture is still more to the upside, and people after this big run up are just kind of pausing and trying to buy now a little lower, thinking they missed the move, but they want to catch it if you get an opportunity to the upside. So we will see if a little momentum continues to the upside, or if we have to kind of chop around in this zone. You can see a zone developing here first. But I still think even if we take out liquidity to the downside, it's going to eventually be turning up towards those targets, and we'll just have to see if that happens early in the week, later in the week, or maybe just, maybe it doesn't happen, but that's kind of what you're expecting.